Afternoon, everybody. We're back with Skipping Lunch. It is not on its normal day again. Since I've gotten back from vacation, everything is kerfuffled. But we are at the right time, and this is episode 9. I'm really pleased today to have Luke Stratton on, who is the creator of Borg. And that should be really fun because this is the most metal book I've ever looked at in my entire life. But first, I just want to talk about a couple things that are going on in the industry. And King Eric is on. Thanks, King Eric. First off, if you have not, and guys, look at the link on my description today because there's something wrong with EVMooks doing screen share. It's pixelating everything and it doesn't look right. But if you are interested in doing a online convention for Index Card RPG. The RUNEJAMMER event is going to be starting on August 24th and running through, I think, the 29th or the 30th. But there's games at a whole bunch of different time slots. I'm going to be doing one at like 8:30 on a Wednesday, doing Index Card Fantasy, which should be really fun. But go look at that. I do have the link in the description that will take you right to the front page. You can join the Discord, and you can look at the calendar to see when all of the different events are being run. This is the first time they're doing it. I know they're really excited about it. So if you're able to play or interested in trying out a new system, go on and do that. The other shout out today is for a patron of mine, Dave, who is really, really fun. He does a lot of stuff with Grimwood Games, does a lot of demonstrating how to build maps and some live streams. Good guy. And he's going to be raising money all month for St. Jude's. I think he's planning a walkathon for that. I wanted to give him a shout out for that for anybody who's interested in supporting him as he does that. And also, it's a reminder to me that I have to do that as well. It's nice always to pay back to the patrons. And those are the 2 bits of news I have today because I want to get right to the conversation. You and your stealth streams, but my passive perception is high. Hi, Mage. I did announce it this morning, or actually I did it last night, so there. But I want to bring on our guest for today. This is Luke Stratton. Luke, how you doing today?
I am great. Thank you for having me on the show.
And thank you for coming on. It's really a pleasure to have you on today. And for folks who don't know, didn't hear the opening, Luke is the creator of Pirate Borg.
Yes, it's funny that you say that because you actually said Borg, which is we just talked about right before.
Did I?
You did.
Which is what? No, that's exactly why I did that because we talked about it before.
Just to be clear. So yeah, I am the illustrator and writer and designer for Pirate Borg, which is coming out on Freely Games and on Talk Like a Pirate Day, September 19th.
Oh, so that's a great timing for it, which should be
it is indeed
rather interesting. We can play everything with Pirate Borg. All right, so I do want to talk a little bit just about your background for being into the tabletop role-playing game hobby. Like, how did you first get into it?
Oh, man. I mean, like many of us, it's a long and storied tale. But I'd say the abridged version is when I was maybe 12 or so. I think we were playing a lot of Magic the Gathering.
Okay.
And I had an older cousin. We were on vacation down in Florida, and I had an older cousin who was in college, and he invited me to play, ironically, the leading edge version of the Aliens RPG.
Oh, neat. Okay.
And, I'm like a 12 or 13-year-old that got invited to this college campus room on a Saturday with, 10 of this guy's friends, and we, as colonial Marines, ran through this, alien hive, and my sergeant died as a grenade exploded into a mock suit, and the rest is history, So then fast forward, I've been playing. I was playing a little bit of D&D over COVID, but my other line of work is concerts. I do concert lighting, and I was basically stuck at home with no source of income, so I was running this pirate campaign. And I started drawing pirate ships using, like model ship plans as my guide.
Oh, wow.
So that I could have battle maps for all these, because there's a lot of ship maps for D&D, but I need a flute, I need a brigantine, I need a sloop, Because I was running, it was like a fairly historical campaign. And that led to, making a Patreon for that. And then by the end of quarantine, the Patreon was paying my mortgage. And then I got kind of burnt out on that.
Okay.
And or I got burnt out, on running that campaign I was running. And my friend took a stab at running some games for us, and he ran Borg. And we had so much fun playing Borg that I was like, this is the way forward, And they have an incredible third-party license. So
They
I ended
really
up,
do, yeah.
yeah, it's the best in the industry. So I hacked it to be a pirate, basically like a rules light pirate role playing game. And now here we are, and it comes out next month, and it went to Kickstarter. It's been a wild ride, but that's my abridged role playing game history.
And you got into how you got into design, which is really good. So how many years are you talking about right now?
Well, I mean, you mean for Pirate Borg?
Or for playing, or for like being playing, and
Well,
then
I mean, I would say through high school, I was mostly a music guy.
Okay,
and my
okay.
brother was the gamer. So I really didn't get seriously into role playing until I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
oh really? Okay.
Yeah, we had moved to Denver, and I had actually, you know what? This is actually kind of a cool story. My brother threw this really crazy birthday party for me when I turned 30. And he works in Hollywood, and he basically remembered that when we watched Michael Douglas's it's not Michael Douglas, but the movie The Game.
Oh yeah.
David Fincher's The Game.
Yeah.
Apparently I said I wish someone would The Game me. So he got all his LA friends together, and it's on YouTube. You can actually I'll look it up here in a second and put it in the comments. But he filmed the whole thing, and it was like this wild birthday party where I ended up like, he ended up getting shot, and I got arrested, and it was crazy. So for his 30th birthday party, a couple years later, I had to get him back.
Oh no.
And I was
Wait,
like,
you
okay.
legit got arrested? Or is that all part of the game?
It was part of the game, but we got picked up by a cop car and handcuffed and stuff. It was yeah. It was. I mean, that's just the beginning, So I had to get him back. So and he's pretty big into gaming. So I learned the One Ring role playing game and played a little bit of D&D 5e just to like get what this thing was. And we ended up running this thing where he had to drive his car to this place in California where we learned how to joust, like real life jousting. And then we played this role playing game, and then there was an escape room. So it was like my attempt to get back. So that started like a snowball for me where I was like, all of a sudden, wow, role playing games are actually pretty cool. So that was probably 6 years ago. So yeah, not that long really.
It's a very dangerous snowball.
Yes, I mean, and now it's consumed my entire life. I'm surrounded by hundreds and hundreds of role-playing game books, and it's, literally, I travel to conventions all year long. So, whatever.
I love the fact that your introduction into role-playing game is an overly immersive LARP.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, that wasn't the first thing I'd done, and there were a few things along the way, but they were always with my brother. I'd never had really played other bigger things. So
Yeah, so King Eric pointed out, once you're in the game, it's hard to get out.
Yes.
So, and the game does star Michael Douglas. You were correct, as Mage's
but
Muses
it's not.
out.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's not Michael Douglas as the game; it's David Fincher's The Game.
Yeah, so okay, he's the director.
Let me see.
David Fincher's the one who did what TV show? Twin Peaks. He was Twin Peaks, right?
I think so. Let's see here. Okay, so here's the. Can I put this in the group chat? Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is. I don't have permissions for that.
Okay.
I'll send it to you. This is
yeah.
the trailer that Tyler made, then he did a 30-minute recap, which we both think is a little too long.
Okay.
But if you know me or him, it might be worth it. But the trailer's great.
And I am wrong. Mage pointed out that it's David Lynch who did Twin Peaks.
David Lynch. Okay, there you go.
They're just all freaky directors.
They are. Yes.
They all sound the same. I'm going to get hate mail for that, which will be great.
Hey, hate mail's fun.
Hate mail is fun. So here's the thing. So Fincher was Fight Club. Thank you. And 7, yeah. So you're playing Mark Borg, which is, I mean, dark is not the word for it. Like it is literally a very metal game, because the world's definitely going to end, and it's everybody dealing with this with the spiral kind of, right?
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing about Mark Borg is they broke a bunch of rules as far as what you expect out of a role playing game.
Okay,
and one of those being like, hey, look, the world's ending. You roll every day to see how soon it will end, and there's no information at all provided on how to stop that, and that's a pretty unique approach.
Yes.
In addition to that, I mean, Johan, the artist and graphic designer, basically set out to break all. He's like a studied working graphic designer for outside of the role playing game industry.
Okay,
and he's like, how can we break all the rules? And
Gotcha.
We'll put 10 fonts on one page and tilt things sideways, and like it was an experiment. But it also happens to be a really, really fun game. And breaking all those rules like opens up this new design space that people didn't even know it could exist before. Before it was like really nice art and laid out columns. And there are certainly RPGs that have better layout and better art integration with the text, but Morkborg breaks all the rules. Where
it was a deliberate choice.
A deliberate choice, yes. And it was never intended to be like the next hot thing like it is now. I mean, there's over 1,000 pieces of Morkborg third-party content.
It's crazy.
Cyborg did, almost 500,000 on Kickstarter. Like that was never the intent, but it happened. And now we're in this like post Morkborg world where like, okay, now all the rules we thought existed for role-playing games are kind of wrong for some people. Like for me, playing a role-playing game consuming a role-playing game via book or PDF or whatever, that experience is different now for me because I get more out of the pitch black art in Morkborg in 10 pages of art than I did out of 50 pages of lore from somebody else's book. So
interesting. And it's very, as you presented Pirate Borg, it's really, I don't want to say it's dense, but it's very succinct. So you get a whole bunch in like one table.
Yes, I would say it's dense. One of the reasons I say that is, I do these like signings at conventions, and there's no room for me to sign. Like I have to like use a silver marker and put it like, it's like it's a dense, especially since it's an A5 book. It's digest.
Yeah, it's real
size,
small.
So.
Yeah. And do you give it? I mean, the layout is it's like a 90s zine, like band zine, underground band zine meets like modern desktop publishing.
Yes, absolutely. I think that was the especially the 90s, punk zine is the intent of Morkborg. But for me, with Pirate Borg, like I said, that's the way forward. And it lets you communicate so much stuff without, like I said, having to dump all that text in there.
Right.
And you're conveying setting with the layouts, and I think that's really cool.
Which is cool. But do you get pushback at all from folks who are intent about accessibility? Because there are certain pages where it's really hard to read.
We have not anywhere like Morkborg, and I think most of them are just like, hey, are you going to do, because after like 3 years, Morkborg did a bare bones edition that's actually free online, and they printed copies that has no layout, and it's fairly like straightforward 2-column text.
Okay.
And people ask us that, but also I think they're mostly asking because Morkborg did it, and the reality is that like I worked pretty hard to make Pirate Borg intense but mostly usable.
And it is very intense. It is an intense read.
It is tense, but other than a few things like there's some black on red that printed darker than it is on the PDF. I think most of it's fairly navigatable. And I don't. And we have so many other projects going on that I don't have an immediate plan to do a bare bones edition.
Gotcha. When you hit your like 3 millionth sale, you can do that.
Yeah, sure.
And so what led you to use this for the pirates, though?
Well, like
is it just the simplicity, or is it just kind of breaking the rules?
No, it's the whole thing. It's like, so I was running this 5th edition campaign we called it Tales from the Caribbean.
Okay.
And it's kind of like, that's kind of always what I do when I'm running a campaign. It's going to be pirates,
Okay.
And for this setting, we had stripped down all these rules. I had do like level cap at level 6, and you can't short rest at sea. You can only long rest, and a short rest is overnight. And like, here's the list of approved spells, and like all these things to like kind of squeeze 5e into a Pirates of the Caribbean vibe.
You distilled it into rum.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
very good. Good.
And especially this is pre-COVID going into this thing, and pre-OGL fiasco. Like it's a time where it's like I don't even know where I would find players if it wasn't 5th edition.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
So then when we're in COVID and we're running this campaign, like I said, we played Morkborg, and like I played, and when I'm playing a normal campaign, I'm always a wizard, and it's always like kind of me, but the fantasy version of me, Well, my
Right.
Morkborg character was like this, like crappy. Like I described him as Jafar's character when he's pretending to be the homeless guy in the cell with Aladdin. If you remember
Oh
that,
my gosh.
like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
terrible beard, missed like teeth in like 10 different angles, you know. And like I was like,
Yep.
he's got 2 hit points. He's gonna die immediately. But one of the guys in our group had an ability that switches 2 of your ability scores. And he ended up like killing the boss in the first mission, and he lived through like all 3 sessions. And by the end, it was like this like medieval Rick and Morty with me and one of the other guys, and it was just so much fun, but also like
Okay.
pitch black, you know, and that like
Yeah, yeah.
you don't start with a bunch of cool stuff. You start with like things that are bad about your character. And for a pirate setting, that like works perfectly. You can start with scurvy or missing a leg, or you know a dread pirate lord is after you, or you know you're haunted by a ghost that nobody else can see. So like for the vibe that we're going for, which I like to describe as like Sea of Thieves or Pirates of the Caribbean meets Darkest
Right.
Dungeon, you know, or Evil Dead.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And for folks who don't know, so in Pirate Borg, I don't know Merkborg, but in Pirate Borg, your characters essentially you can randomly roll things to get all these cool aspect of your character, and that ghost that no one else can see is absolutely hysterical.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
that would be
And,
great for
I mean,
roleplay.
and you know, when we run con games, it always starts with character creation because it doesn't take that long. If you know what you're doing, you can do it in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you don't, it's maybe 20 or 25. And
Gotcha.
we have a random generator. And like what I like to do is like let people make their first character so they can really understand what you get out of that experience.
Okay.
But then when you inevitably die, you can just roll up a new one quickly, you know. Now you're of course
It
welcome
doesn't
to
take long at all.
no, it doesn't. And you're welcome to craft a character, but you know, I find like don't get too attached because the thing that this like chaos presents to you, it's almost like if you've ever played Dungeon Crawl Classics with the funnel, like the one character you didn't know you cared about ends up becoming the hero of the campaign. And I think that gives something to the setting in a game that you don't get when you craft the character and write a backstory, you know.
Yeah, it's just randomly you're just like, how do I bring this character to life instead of like how do I mirror what I want to do in the back of my head.
And you know,
Deal with what you got, what
the
you got.
problems that they have can be ones that you wouldn't put in, but that, you know, like one thing is infested with bugs. So that I've seen that come out at the table so many different ways. Or like one of my favorites is so good looking that people are jealous. And we did this
that was
online stream where like this one character was basically like other characters at the table would make bad meta decisions because of this good looking character. And it was like, it's just I don't know. It's just better for storytelling. It's better for laughter. It's maybe not quite as good for like a 5-year campaign. If you're running a long-term campaign, it's going to be a little bit more like your players are discovering the world and making memories, not their characters.
Right.
And then you've got that legendary thing that would be very much like real piracy, where the one guy that survives, that learns some crazy arcane ritual, ends up becoming Necromancer Blackbeard, you know, and then he's got a crew that's changing, but this one guy's like leveled up 5 times, and now he's like pretty much invincible in that game setting. So that's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool stuff. I kind of thought of it as it's like taking Pirates of the Caribbean and like jacking all the macabre up to like 11.
Yeah, or like
So-
it's Pirates of the Caribbean, but you're playing as Barbossa and his guys. You know,
Yeah.
everybody's cursed, and you're trying to like get back to being a normal human. You know, that kind of thing.
It's really fascinating, and the world's going to end. You held that through.
I held that through. It's a little bit less like random as to when it will occur.
Right.
You know, if you look at Morkborg, so there's this cool D66 table, which is basically like a bunch of psalms that you each day you read one, or you roll to see if you read one, and after you read the 7th one, the world ends. But each one also has like an in-world effect. You know, like there's a plague, or like, you know, food stop having taste, or things like that. And then for Cyborg, they did a version of that where instead of it being like psalms, it's like terrible headlines that the mass corporations are like spewing out to the, you know. So I was like, and my buddy Brian Colin, who did Vaskrim, which is like a space worm hack of Morkborg.
I interviewed this guy at PAX Unplugged last year. That was wild.
Brian he's a good friend of mine. He asked me actually on we played a game on stream, and he asked me if I was going to do anything like that. And I hadn't planned to, but he did something like that. And I was like, man, I got to do, okay. So my twist on it is that it's, if you look up any of these old pirate books, there's this one book called The General History of Pirates. And I was like, well, what if I do something like that? So it's a D66 table of like events that could be like a news thing, but they're also set into columns of like story threads and then chapters. So you can play through each one. Like one is like the rise and fall of Tortuga,
right?
Or I think it's the rise and fall of NASA. So they could be like events that are happening in your world, and then you can skip them if you want, or do it, use them randomly. But then at the end, the world ends in Armageddon, and the abyss opens in the sea and consumes all, and then it asks you to cast the book into the sea.
Yep.
So.
It's an interesting table.
Yes.
So I got a question from King Eric. I don't know if you know this or not, but you've delved into the collection sphere. So King Eric remembers that there was an old school RPG called Pirates and Plunder from 1982. Are you familiar with that? I don't know that one at all.
I mean, I honestly, if I could shake King Eric's hand, I would, because the fact that he's presented a pirate role-playing game that I have not even heard of is very, very impressive. I am going to seek this thing out and purchase it immediately. Also, I was born in 1983, so obviously I did not play it back in the day.
You would have had to pick it up used in the 90s.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But I mean, I've got Pirates of the Spanish Main and 50 Fathoms, and I don't have it, but I'm familiar with 7C. So I've done my research, I guess, but not enough. Need to go back into the archives.
Yeah. There's always more.
There is, yes.
I mean, I need more shelves. I mean, that's my problem right now.
Yes.
So one of the interesting aspects of the game, which is ironic, which oddly enough is not based on a non-historical event or concept, is this idea of ash.
Oh, yes.
Does that pull over from Morkborg, or is that your own unique thing?
That's my own thing. I mean, basically, I got to this point in the world building process, which there's not a ton of world building in Pirate Borg, because my next book is, which we can talk about in a second. It's called The Dark Caribbean.
Okay.
That's the one coming up.
Okay.
This was supposed to be that book, but it ended up becoming a hack of Morkborg. So I knew I wanted this like undead infested dark Caribbean, and it's a terrible place. And it's like, well, why are people there? Like, I need a reason for people to be there,
Gotcha.
So I don't even remember. It's like almost one of those, like, it was always there in the ether. I just had to like put out my net to grab this idea. But basically it's like when the Europeans showed up to the Caribbean, it's like tropical paradise and abandoned. There are no natives. There are animals, but there are no humans. And there's these like big abandoned temples left by these cultures that are lost to history.
Okay.
And they're just filled with artifacts and treasure. So like you get this exodus from Europe into the Caribbean, like maybe tenfold compared to our real history. Where they build these, like, it's like a huge marketplace where, like, Havana is like a mini metropolis, and
right.
Maracaibo becomes this like beacon of the Inquisition with like conquistador, armies and stuff. But then, of course, they figure out after a couple hundred years, the undead, which are called the Scourge, make their way out of the water and start consuming all.
Right.
And you would think, well, this is why there's no natives. Like, let's get out of here, Well, the thing they discover is when you destroy these undead, they leave behind ectoplasmic dust called ash, which for our convention pitch, I always say it's like spice from Dune mixed with magic mushrooms.
Right.
And that it is like it's a psychoactive, it's got physiological and psychedelic effects. And when these pirates consume it, or, anybody in the Dark Caribbean consumes it, it can, level you up. It can switch your vision and give you synesthesia, or it can kill you. So I just think that creates this like really rich ecosystem for a role-playing game.
And there's a reason to be there. It's
Yeah, and there's
this thing that people at.
You,
Yeah.
and you have this like, oh, hey, there's a giant ship of bone with blood in its wake and black sails, and it's covered with like ghostly skeletons coming towards your ship. And instead of turning and fleeing, all those pirates like load the guns and like get grins on their faces to go like try to
here's
like
the plunder.
yeah, and like often that means that inevitably they all become part of the skeleton crew, you know. So yeah, so it's
and I don't and it's not to put it out. But there's a risk to it because in your timeline, there's literally an event because anyone who's ever consumed ash actually becomes undead.
Yes, of course. And, you know, I think actually I have a funny story to tell about this, but that table is like players shouldn't read that table. You know,
okay.
It's a table for the GM.
But it's at the beginning of the book.
Well, yeah, but it's not a player book. Like
that's true.
We have a PDF version of the book. That's 4 players that comes with every pack.
Okay.
And it doesn't have that table in it. Yeah.
Gotcha. So now I'm giving things away. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I mean, you know, I think also it's not the kind of game where if you know something, it'll save you. It's just you just know plot spoiler, you know. So we had a really fun thing though. Like for you know, I turned 40 on Friday at Gen Con, but you know, this is a bad time of year to visit the Caribbean because of hurricanes. So earlier in the year, we did a trip where me and a couple of my guys went to Nassau. I went sailing for a week, and then I met up with my family and my wife. And while we were on the boat, we played a little mini campaign. And every day of the campaign, I revealed a new event from the table. And we started at the end. So on like the second day, everyone who had ever done Ash turned into a skeleton, and like they didn't know what was happening. They were like, "What?" Like you know. And then there's an optional subclass where you can play as skeletons.
There is, yeah.
So I just basically gave them that and we just kept going. And then on the final day of the sailing, the world ended. And then when we got back to Nassau, my brother and I threw a copy of Pirate Borg into the Nassau Harbor, which was like the most cathartic thing I've ever done in my life. So if you go snorkeling at the bottom of the Nassau Harbor, I felt I won't lie, I felt bad about throwing any trash in the ocean, but I felt if there's one piece of trash that is allowed to be in the Caribbean, it's a copy of Pirate Borg. So
that's awesome.
So we filmed all that.
Immersion.
I'll post all that stuff eventually, but we came back and immediately got busy with con season. So.
That's absolutely fantastic. So your day job is not game designer.
I wouldn't say. I mean, at this point, it's really more like this is my day job, and the thing that you're about to talk about is my night job. I really have two full time. So
you have 2 full times.
Yeah, so
that's
this one
cool.
I mean, this one. Yeah, that's my answer. So, yes, my other job is concert lighting design, and so I'm very fortunate in that when I'm out, I can bring my tablet and we set up a little desk somewhere in the backstage area and draw maps and work on what I'm working on. And then at night, I do the show.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
But like what I'm interested in is like how, because you did lay out and design for Pirate Borg, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I did the whole book. Yeah.
What aspect of your lighting design did you influenced your design of the book? I
wouldn't. I mean, I just have a long history of tinkering in Photoshop. I was in high school. I was a drum and bass DJ, and I downloaded Photoshop to make my first mixtape labels. Back when I was terrible.
Mixtapes,
yay! And then I ran a small software company for a couple of years, and I did the graphic design for that. It's just I've just developed my graphic design skill tree was advanced enough that when I decided to figure out how to do it for a book, I was able to figure it out. I would say the lighting does really help when it came to learning how to draw, because I understand. Like for example, right now I'm looking at how this shadow on my face
is on your face. You're driving you nuts.
See how this is like a little bit more blue? No, it doesn't drive me nuts. It's just this is a little more blue, and this is a little more. Like that kind of stuff, most people don't think about instinctively, but I do all the time, because when I'm lighting bands, I'll be like, okay, I want a rim light shadow that's red, and then I'll footlight up, So that helps when you go to draw, even if it's a building on a tabletop map, you kind of understand.
You understand how light works, yeah.
That really, I mean, when I look at for example, my brother did this map for a little castle thing he was running, and he just did it in Dungeon Draft. And Dungeon Draft's a great program, But he sent it to
Love
me, and in like 10 minutes, I added shadows and highlights. And like it went from looking like a Dungeon Draft map to looking like a Patreon map just by adding lighting. And the only
Isn't
difference
that neat
between
how you can just pull that out and draw on it, and you're
you just
done?
have to know how to do it. That's so,
right.
So that's helped.
Really, really cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. And then, so what was your favorite aspect of designing the book?
Oh man, can you like point me in a direction? Do you mean like?
Well, like, did you? I mean, you broke all the rules, which that was kind of already established. But like, what was like? Did you like making the tables? Did you like making the random aspects of your characters when you build them? Designing the history that's kind of alluded to, drawing the ships, like because you have a whole bunch of ships in there that are really, really nicely done.
I mean, I think I definitely have ADD. I don't think I have ADHD, but I have an insane ability to hyper focus. But yeah, and I think that's really honestly served me well in my life. It's it's actually one of my boons, not a burden. But sometimes it gets in the way, in that it'll be hard to get started on a task I don't want to get started on. So there are definitely parts of the book where it was like, okay, well, it was fun to draw one ship, but now I have to draw 18.
Right.
So that was more of on the challenging side. I'm trying to think. I mean, the whole book was really fun to make. I wrote a lot of it and drew a lot of it on my iPad, many of which was on a plane, going to a gig, or backstage, or while my wife was watching TV. So I really tried to like use as much time as I can to pull out that creative stuff.
Gotcha.
But I don't know. At the same time, like a lot of it was fun. But like I'm the kind of creator that like I need to get it out and it needs to be perfect. So it's like almost also torture. Like it's not fun like playing a role-playing game. It's like it has to come out and it has to look good enough for me to be proud of it. And if it doesn't, I'll just be unhappy. So really, in a lot of ways, it's more like I'm just like pulling this anchor out of the sea. And then when it's finally up, we just move to the next place. It's not really it's not really fun. I mean, it's fun, but it's like, I just have to do it. That's the way I'm wired, I guess.
No, I empathize. This is very similar to how I am. So when I upload something to YouTube and I watch it and I realize I missed something, I'll like not sleep for like 2 days. I'm like, why did I do that? I'm an idiot. Which I just had on my last review. I had 2 things. There's like, I literally was told that bit of information and I screwed it up, which is so.
Yeah, you got to let it go. I mean, we've had so many typos found in Pirate Borg. We're on the second printing, and there are. Even the other day, someone was like, hey, the PDF for this Rapscallion class says one thing, and it's totally different in the book. And it's totally different in the second printing, which is like, how did I miss it? How did nobody out of like 6,000 backers notice that the PDF doesn't match the book? Like, who knows? A year into it, So it happens, man. Like, you just got to... Honestly, I think and at my point, I've just learned to like shrug them off and put it in a Trello, put it in a like to-do list card somewhere, and come back to it later. So.
But in your case, you have an out, because you can just say like we wrote it in character. They were on Ash.
Oh well, yeah, I've said that. So. I actually said that at Gen Con last week. So I was showing somebody the map that comes included with Pirate Borg, and it's the Dark Caribbean map. And we did a lot of like play testing and like think tanking on how far away everything should be, like how realistic should it be. And at one point we doubled the scale, so hexes are 50-mile hexes instead of 25.
Gotcha.
And in the book they're 50-mile hexes, but on the included printed map they're 25-mile hexes. And I told this person, I was like, look, this is drawn by a pirate, so like the scale's unreliable. So.
I love it.
Yeah.
King Eric just put out another comment. He said, which I've never heard of, advanced graphic design is my favorite RPG. I don't know if he's serious or not.
I thought that I read that and thought that was a, like, basically you're playing an RPG by making graphic design.
There is a game that's about like project management, which I talked about at PAX, or interviewed somebody at PAX Unplugged this year.
Yeah.
But advanced graphic design is rather interesting. So you just got back from Gen Con, and we're playing a bunch of games there, which you said was an absolute blast. Are you doing any other conventions?
I actually really didn't play very many games at all. I was on 3 panels, and I had like 3 interviews, and we had a booth. So the only game other than at night, late night gaming, the only one I got in was I did a game with the designer, as we called it, because last year Tyler and I ran all the games. But this year we had a team of people. We ran 34 Pirate Borg games, I think.
Oh wow, okay.
But I only ran one of them. And I had some of the guys from my Discord server that are patrons come, and we had a blast. So basically, just to give a cool summary of this, because I'm going to work it into the next book. Port Royal was destroyed in an earthquake in reality in 1692, I believe.
Okay.
And the place where Admiral Henry Morgan was buried, washed into the sea as part of this earthquake. It was lost.
Okay.
So I have this little ongoing thing where I started these guys in Port Royal. The earthquake happened and it killed all of them but one.
Okay.
And I had that guy tell us his life story. And then when he died a happy old life, they all woke up at the same moment as ghosts aboard a ship outside of Port Royal, being invited to Henry Morgan's Dance Macabre masquerade ball. And they all played as ghost pirates. And I was like, dude, I'm just living my own best life right now by running this game for these guys. So that was like my one RPG game at Gen Con.
That's cool.
But yeah, cons, we've got... next up is Gamehole Con. Up in Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. And then, actually, no. The very next thing is I'm doing North Glen Pirate Fest, which is north of Denver. And it's like 2 days before the book release. And they have
that's awesome.
Yeah, they have like a pirate ball on Friday. And then it's just like, and it says in the bylaws when you buy a booth, like you have to, you have to dress like a pirate. And if you aren't selling piratey things, you need to apply for a corporate sponsorship and talk to our management. And I was like, this is my place. So we have a booth at that. I don't know if those people will go for role-playing games, but we're going to be there.
Okay. Hey, if they're going to be dressed up like pirates anyway, it's just one. Short step to a role-playing game at that point.
That's what I think. And then we've got Gamehole Con, and then PAX Unplugged.
You're going to be at PAX Unplugged? I'll be there because I'm right outside of Philly. So.
Oh yeah. We've got another big booth, and we're actually like butted up against Free League, so it'll be hard to miss us.
Awesome.
And then next year we'll probably, we'll do the whole circuit again. We're thinking about doing Gary Con. We're definitely going to do Genghis Con in Denver because it's easy for me.
You're right there. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to do Origins.
Okay.
And then back to Gen Con, of course. That place is insane. So
I hear insanity from it. Like I couldn't believe how big PAX Unplugged was.
Oh my god, PAX Unplugged is like literally a third the size of Gen Con. It's unbelievable. It's basically like nonstop people in every aisle, and you know that the main hall at PAX Unplugged. Imagine if it was totally full of vendors. And it's the big one in that everybody brings their A game as far as vendors. So there's like signage everywhere, and everyone has their biggest booth of the year, and there's releases. Yeah, so it's pretty wild time.
That's absolutely amazing. And Mage has pointed out Advanced Graphic Design is a real game.
Oh, nice. Okay.
AG&D. With Eric will sometimes trick me with comments and videos, and I'll be like, "Wait, what's that?" He's like, "No, I was making a joke," and I'll completely go over.
It still sounds like a joke though. Involves a session of an employer trying to motivate artists to meet deadlines, roll your motivation. I mean, I don't want to play. This is kind of why I don't like Cyborg. I like Cyborg and I like cyberpunk as a genre, but it's just too close to reality. It's just like, oh, we're just staring at screens and we live in this like mega corp run.
Oh my god.
He was joking. See,
Mage was joking too.
Yeah.
Darn you. But here's the thing. There is a game that is about project management.
There are, especially in the indie, like zine RPG space, you get a lot of these like, but not like, we bought a zoo, but like there's one like you live on a trash barge and lots of those. Yeah.
Yep. Just great. So this comes out, you said September 19th, Talk Like a Pirate Day?
It comes out in retail September 19th. You can buy the game in almost all the add-ons from our pre-order store, our backer kit store.
Okay.
But those ship right away.
And what's it going for?
The core book is $39.99, and we have a limited edition, which is like a foil. Here, I have one. This is like the foil leatherette.
Okay. Ooh.
With the emboss. And this one, I think, is $60.
And it has a book ribbon.
Yes. And the second printing does not have book ribbons because of our reprint stuff. So get it from the creator, right?
Gotcha. And will it be going for $49.99 when it gets on Free League as well?
$39.99. Yes. And
okay.
you can pre-order it from Free League. You can pre-order the second printing from Free League now, and it'll be. And I think theirs are shipping. I have people who are like, I pre-ordered this and I got it already, so I think they're shipping them as well. But then it'll be in world if you're waiting, especially if you're in a country where you don't want to pay an import or something.
Yeah,
it'll be in retail September 19th. But in addition to that, we are launching a an annual event called Talk Like a Pirate Day as well.
No.
Yeah, and this is we're really excited for this. There's kind of a lot to digest here, so I'll try to get it as concise as I can. But we're launching a Harbor Master program where you can get rewards for running games in public games, whether they're online or in game. Okay. And that will have different tiers of rewards. One of the higher ones being a piece of 8 D2. Or pencils, pins, that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
And then we also have retailer kits for people who have pre-ordered. You have to get Pirate Borg through your normal distribution channels through Free League, but all the add-ons come through us. So if your store is going to stock Pirate Borg, you can reach out to us for a retailer kit, which comes with a poster and all the zines and patches and stickers to give away. Yeah, so I know that was awesome. A lot, but it should be. We're trying to make it a thing, and hopefully it'll be a thing every year. So,
that's cool. So, 2 things: get me the link for your pre-order store from your backer kit store.
I mean, really, you just
I'll put that in the description below.
Just pirateborg.com will get you there.
Awesome. I'll make sure I put it in the description too.
Yeah.
And then I'm starting to get yelled at about my bandwidth dying. So real quick, tell me about the next book.
Okay, so The Dark Caribbean is the book I always intended to make. It's basically a setting book with lots of maps of all the different islands in the Caribbean, factions, NPCs, both placed locations like Port Royal and Havana, and then movable locations that you can place where, kind of like in Forbidden Lands, where you can put this adventure site anywhere in the campaign. It's going to be a larger book than Pirate Borg, both in page count and in size. I'm working on it now. I'm hoping it'll hit Kickstarter sometime next year. Depends on how OCD I get with it and how quick I can work on it. But it's going to be also shared in chunks with progress updates on our Patreon. So if you can't wait and you want to get going, come on over to the Patreon.
I'll make sure I share that link down in the description too for the Patreon. That's thank you so much. It was great to be able to talk. I hope I get to see you at PAX Unplugged. Are you going to be at Free League's booth, or are you going to have your own booth?
Our booth is attached to Free League's, so you just got to walk. You just got to walk to the other side of the banner, and we'll be there.
I'll be there. So I definitely want to pop in to see Doug too.
Come say hi. Yes.
And someone just came on. I love Pirate Borg. We'll make sure that gets on. Hi, Tyler.
That's my brother. He doesn't count.
Oh, that's your brother. Oh my gosh.
Biased.
Well,
he's
our
quartermaster. He's our he counts, but it's
He helped throw a book into the harbor and committed,
he did.
Helped pollute the earth. It was good. It's nice.
Tyler, you missed us talking about you a bunch, actually.
Thank you for ruining his life with his immersive LARP where he got arrested. Which is nice.
I mean, he counts. I'm just saying he doesn't count as a rando saying they're
rando fan showing up. That's awesome. Well, listen, I don't want to keep you any longer than I have to. I know this is your only day home. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for making this really. I mean, the word insane gets tossed around, but this is a really nutso game, and it's really intense. So if you're interested in a really dark, gonzo, crazy pirate game, this really is what you should pick up. And there are jokes about the rum being gone, which I think is perfect.
And the first real table in the book in the end papers is the carousing table. That's the kind of game. That's the kind of experience you get when you come play Pirate Borg. And that table you can level up, get rich, become captain, or die. So,
and usually all three, which is good. So awesome. Well, thank you for being on. I'm going to end the stream. If you stick on a little bit afterwards, I just want to thank you again. But folks, go check it out. This is a really distinct, unique game. So it's really worth checking out. Thank you so much, everybody. And thanks for coming on, Luke. Have a great week, folks.